Hello, my name is Connor Gular, and I'm here to talk to you about the terrifying terrorist group on the rise, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, otherwise known as ISIS. There's been a lot of talk in the media, political and at home, about this so-called new terrorist group, and I would like to simplify the facts for all of you. ISIS is a threat to Middle Eastern stability, and it poses the possibility of a new wave of international terrorism through the use of foreign fighters. Before getting to current and future goals of ISIS, I'd like to explain how ISIS as we know it today came into creation. So, ISIS narrative, how they came about, is a complicated story. It was originally founded in 1999 in the nation of Jordan by a man named al-Zawahiri. Originally, ISIS was known as al-Tawhid. Like the majority of Muslims, he belonged to the majority Sunni sect of Islam. However, unlike the majority of Muslims, he believed in a particularly radical and violent offshoot called Wahhabism, which according to a 2013 New York Times article has roots in the Saudi Peninsula and interestingly enough, the ruling clan. Despite being denounced by virtually all Islamic scholars, clerics, and even other terrorist groups, ISIS still claims to be the true followers of the one God. I'd like to return to the creation of ISIS. The group gained notoriety following the American-led coalition invasion of Iraq, where in 2004 they allied themselves under the Al-Qaeda banner, changed their name to Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and fought against coalition forces until the withdrawal of forces from Iraq in December of 2011. As you can see, America has actually been in conflict with ISIS for over a decade. It was simply under a different name and leadership, though the goals remain virtually the same. Around that time, ISIS shifted its focus to the Syrian civil war, where it honed its more open conflict skills versus the hit-and-run tactics of the Iraqi insurgency. In 2013, after holding strong points across the Syrian border with Iraq, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria returned to Iraq, making rapid gains across western and northern Iraq, which has continued until very recently. Now that you are familiar with the background of ISIS, I'd like to discuss the current holdings and goals of ISIS. A letter dated in 2004, obtained and released by the U.S. Office of National Intelligence, explained the goals of Al-Qaeda in Iraq was to first and foremost establish an Islamic caliphate. A caliphate is a nation led politically and religiously by a single figure. After repurposing the captured U.S. military equipment, they continued with their campaign across the Levant region, which spans across Iraq, Syria, and some parts of Israel, where according to ISIS, they have established their caliphate, with Abu al-Baghdadi as its leader. An elusive figure, the U.S. State Department has offered $10 million for information leading to his capture, which is the second highest of any international fugitive. ISIS demanded that Al-Qaeda and all other extremist Islamic terrorist groups, including Hamas, the Taliban, and groups across Africa and northern the Middle East, swear allegiance to them or be branded as infidels and face execution of their own. Also, ISIS imposed their own version of strict Islamic rule, surpassing even the Taliban in their brutal execution of their will, which includes public beatings and executions for those who displease them. However, virtually all Islamic leaders have criticized their declaration of a caliphate, calling it a sham and a disgrace. A fortified land base is very important to their current goals. The land they hold allows them to sell oil on the black market, which funds their operations, according to a report by the U.S. military. Their oil reserves, combined with other means of money-making, such as kidnapping and extortion, and donations from sympathizers, has led them to be valued at $2 billion, which includes the captured U.S. equipment. Also, it gives secure space to train their fighters and suicide bombers. With their deep pockets and now possessing a land base, they have become the world's most powerful extremist group, surpassing Hamas and the Taliban, according to many governments and other international groups. Now that I have covered what their current goals are and were, and the means through which they have attained them, I'd like to talk about the facet of ISIS which affects us here in America, the future of ISIS and their goals. ISIS' idea of a future depends on who you talk to, which news station you listen to, or even ISIS members or propaganda themselves. ISIS dreams of a future where the Middle East is composed of one leading Sunni nation led by the Islamic State without the interference or influence of Westerners, which includes the destruction of the nation and people of Israel. This is an unrealistic goal due to the military power of Saudi Arabia and other nations. And at the strongest, ISIS might be able to capture a fractured Syria and a weakened Iraq. A more realistic and very possible goal of ISIS is to amass a more diverse group of foreign fighters across the region. This is a very dangerous combination because these foreign fighters can be trained in terrorist tactics and then using their passports return to their home countries, including America, and carry out violent acts. Plots like this have already been foiled in Australia, according to a BBC report, and the Department of Homeland Security has advised that it may happen here as well. The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria may seem complicated, but with little explanation they become less frightening and therefore defeatable. If you have paid attention to the news recently, you should know that America has directly engaged in airstrikes against ISIS and continues to escalate it day by day. Hopefully, it appears the momentum that has carried ISIS in its conquest throughout the last 2 years has been halted. Overall, I hope I have cleared up the confusion many of us feel when it comes to ISIS, specifically their origins and goals. Unfortunately, I can provide no answers on how the world's nations and leaders should deal with this complex and dangerous organization, which has harassed the Middle East for over a decade now. Thank you.